Hi, just a quick welcome to everybody before Pastor Eshelman comes up to deliver a welcome prayer. Thank you all for coming.
Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for all the goodness that is on display today, all this bounty from thee. We thank thee for Mrs. Cronin, Mrs. Ward, for these students and for their families, parents, and grandparents assembled here. We thank you for your providence in history and how we can see your hand directing the affairs of our lives, and that we can say with confidence, Jesus, led us all the way. We pray that you would bless the students now as they perform what they have rehearsed, help them with their nerves, help them with their memories, and bless this time, we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, so welcome again, friends and family, to the Yesterday Show, where history steps off the page and comes to life through the voices of our very talented third grade students. My name is Mrs. Cronin, and together with Mrs. Ward and the third grade class of Hartford Christian School, we are honored to have you all here today. Our class has spent weeks researching, writing, and rehearsing to share these powerful stories. As they step into the roles of real people from the past, you'll see their creativity and effort shine. As they bring each character to life, you'll hear incredible tales of bravery, sacrifice, and faith. Through it all, we see God's hand guiding each moment in history, just as he continues to guide each of us. These young historians have not only studied the past, but they've also discovered how God's plan weaves through their every life and in their own. And without further ado, I would love to welcome our very first guest, Harriet Tubman. Welcome to our show, Harriet. When were you born?
I was born in Maryland, 1820, with slaves in a shack not big at all, and they named me Armenteros.
What happened during your childhood that affected your health for the rest of your life?
I got hit on the head with a heavy weight by mistake, which made me have narcolepsy.
Wow. What was your job in the Civil War?
I helped the Union Army by being a nurse and a spy.
And how did you help slaves escape to freedom?
I led them to the Underground Railroad. It was like a secret path to help slaves escape to freedom. I helped over 300 slaves escape to freedom.
That is remarkable. Did you have a nickname?
Yes, my nickname was Moses because God helped me lead slaves to freedom like Moses did in the Bible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming today, Harriet. Now we welcome General John J. Blackjack Pershing. When were you born?
I was born on September 13th, 1860 in Lincled, Missouri, to a family who lived in a log cabin.
And why do people call you Blackjack?
When I was a West Point military teacher, they thought I was strict, so they called me Blackjack.
Who was a very special guest at your wedding?
The special guest at my wedding was President Theodore Roosevelt.
Wow. And what happened to your house in 1915?
In 1915, my house burnt down, and my wife and all the daughters died. But my son was saved through a window at the top of the house.
And when did you die?
I died on July 15th, 1948, in Arlington, Virginia, from heart failure at the age of 88.
I see. Well, thank you for coming today. Hello and welcome. You go by the name of Nellie Bly. Is that your full name?
My full name is actually Elizabeth Jane Cochran. My family called me Pink. I wrote under the pen name Lonely Orphan Girl, then my editor named me Nellie Bly.
Wow, so many names. Are you from around here, Nellie?
I was born in Cochran's Mill, pretty far north in Pennsylvania.
So what are some things you really enjoy in life?
Traveling and writing are my favorites. I'm happy I was able to turn them into a career.
That is wonderful. What is the scariest assignment you've ever done?
I checked myself into a madhouse. I'm happy I was able to write about, though. It helped the patients so much.
That is great. What was the most exciting assignment you've been on?
Traveling around the world in 72 days was amazing. I traveled to so many different places, met so many people, and traveled in so many different ways. It was a life-changing trip.
I'm sure it was, and thank you for coming today, Nellie Bly. We welcome Christopher Columbus. When were you born?
There were actually no records of when I was born. It has been estimated by historians that I was born in 1451 between August 25th and October 31st.
I see. And where were you born?
I was born in the Republic of Genoa. Today, the Republic of Genoa is now known as Italy.
That's right. How did you learn about sailing?
I learned about sailing when I was a teenager. I got a job on a merchant ship until I was attacked by pirates. The ship sunk, but I was able to float to land on a piece of scrap wood.
Wow, sounds like an adventure. And how many voyages did you take?
I took 4 voyages in my life. I was trying to find a shorter route from Europe to Asia, but I said from the Americas.
Amazing. What were your last words?
On May 20th, 1506, I was surrounded by my 2 brothers, my 2 sons and my 2 brothers, and I said, "Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit," before passing away.
I see. Well, thank you for joining us today, Christopher Columbus. We welcome to our show Dwight D. Eisenhower. How many children were in your family?
My parents, David and Ida, had 7 sons. I was the 3rd born. My brother Paul died when he was 10 months old.
I'm sorry to hear that. When did you begin your military career?
I began my career at West Point June 14th, 1911. My favorite subjects were political and military history.
Well, that sounds interesting. Where did you meet your wife?
I met Mamie Dow while I was stationed at Fort Sam in Houston, Texas. We were married on July 1st, 1916, and enjoyed 52 years together.
That's wonderful. What was the most difficult assignment of your career?
It was planning and carrying out Operation Overlord, also known as D-Day. I was responsible for the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. It took 3 months to push the Germans back to the border. The Germans finally surrendered on May 7th, 1945.
Very good. What did you do after retiring from the military?
I was president of Columbia University for 5 years. In 1953, I was elected the 34th president of the United States. I served 2 terms.
Wonderful. Thank you, President Eisenhower. And welcome, Miss Elizabeth Prentice. What are you most remembered for?
When I was a little girl growing up in the 1820s, everyone in my town knew me as the daughter of Edward Payson, the famous pastor of Second Congregational Church in Portland, Maine. In my adult years, I wrote Christian books and poems.
Very nice. What books and poems are you famous for writing?
In 1869, I wrote Stepping Heavenward, which is about a girl named Kate and her growing relationship with God through many trials. I also wrote the hymn, More Love to Thee, O Christ.
It's one of my favorites. Can you tell us about one of your lesser-known books?
I once wrote a book I called Little Susie's Servants. It is about a mother teaching her young daughter how to serve God using her 5 senses.
And tell us more about your family.
My father, Pastor Payson, died when I was 9. When I was 27, I married George Prentice. The Lord gave us 6 children: Annie, Eddie, Bessie, Minnie, George, and Henry. Sadly, Eddie died when he was 4 years old, and Bessie died when she was 1 month old.
Sounds like you had a difficult life.
Yes, but the Lord taught me He can sweeten any trial. I believe the highest, purest happiness is known only to those who have learned Christ in sick rooms, in poverty, amid hardships, and at the open grave.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming, Elizabeth Prentice. And welcome to our show, Benjamin Franklin. Where were you born?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, January 17, 1706.
And what was your job?
My job was writing newspapers. I owned a print shop. I printed a newspaper called the Pennsylvania Gazette.
And what were some of your inventions?
I was really electrified by the lightning rod. I also created the Franklin stove, the Franklin lamp, and these handy bifocal glasses I'm wearing right now.
Yes, very handy. What was your biggest accomplishment?
My biggest accomplishment was being one of the founding fathers of the United States of America. I helped write the U.S. Constitution.
That's right, you sure did. How did you die?
I became very ill and died on April 17, 1790, at the age of 84.
I see. Well, thank you for joining our show today, Ben Franklin. And now we welcome Laura Ingalls Wilder. Laura, can you tell us about your early life?
I was born on a frontier farm near Pepin, Wisconsin on February 7, 1867. My mother and father were Charles and Caroline Ingalls. I was the second of 5 siblings.
And what was your childhood like?
Well, there were good times and bad times. I always had a family. My father worked hard to feed us. I had a loving mother who took good care of us. We did move around a lot, though, which was hard as a young girl. But as I got older and became a writer, I realized it was good for me to have so many different experiences in the back of my mind to dig from for ideas.
True. Looking back, does any one place stick out as your favorite place to live?
Oh, definitely. Walnut Grove, Minnesota. That's where all my inspirations came for my Little House series.
It's one of my favorite series. Were you ever married?
Yes, my husband's name was Almanza Wilder. We met in 1882 when I had my first teaching job in a small community school in South Dakota.
And how was life after marriage?
It was quite similar to my childhood. There were fun times, but also very challenging times. Almanzo and I had a beautiful daughter named Rose, who was born in 1886. But very soon after her birth, Almanzo fell ill with diphtheria, which left him practically paralyzed for the rest of his life. But by God's grace, everything finished well, and my Little House series took off.
It sure did. Thank you for coming today. And welcome, General Patton. General Patton, what were you like as a child?
I was born in California on November 11th, 1885. I was the happiest boy. My family was wealthy, and I was so spoiled.
I see. Did you always want to be a soldier?
Oh yes, when I was a little boy at home, I used to wear a wooden sword and say to myself, George S. Patton, Jr., Lieutenant General.
Very good. Did you enjoy school?
Not at first. I had dyslexia and went many years not knowing how to read or write. My Aunt Nanny helped me learn, and I loved it. I even went and graduated from West Point Military Academy.
And what is something in your military career you are most proud of?
I'm proud of a lot. They called me Old Blood and Guts because I was always determined. I knew we needed a more powerful tank division. The U.S. Armed Forces was created in 1940, and I was put in charge.
Very nice. Do you have any interesting facts people might not know about you?
I designed the Cavalry Saber, a new straight blade weapon, and it is now known as the Patton Sword. Perfect name for it, don't you think?
I sure do. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, hello there. Thank you for coming to our show. Who are you and where were you born?
My name is Benjamin Banneker. I was born on November 9, 1731 in Potomac, Maryland, about an hour from here.
And what type of things did you do as a child?
I grew up on a 100-acre tobacco farm, and when I wasn't helping out, I was playing the violin and the flute. I would also solve math problems in the dirt with a stick and watch the stars at night.
Sounds wonderful. I heard you wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson. What made you do that?
Thomas Jefferson said all men were created equal, but a lot of African Americans were still enslaved. I wanted him to change that so we could all be free.
Absolutely. Not many people know you calculated the life cycle of the 17-year cicada. What are some of your other accomplishments?
Good question. I predicted a solar eclipse. I wrote 6 almanacs. I helped design the layout of Washington, D.C., and I made the first all-American wooden clock from a pocket watch like this one. It rang every hour for 40 years.
That's amazing. And where is your famous clock now?
On the day of my funeral, my log cabin burned to the ground. People believe it was arson. Everything in my cabin, including all my work and my clock, was lost. You can find a replica of it at my museum in Catonsville, Maryland.
I see. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming, Benjamin Banneker.
Now we'd like to welcome to our show Mr. Paul Revere. Hello there. Where were you born?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1735 when America was still a colony of Great Britain.
Very good. And what did you do for work?
I was a master silversmith. I made things like tea sets and candle holders.
Wow, that's very impressive. What are you most known for?
I am most known for my midnight ride. I had the ride through night to warn Patriot colonists that the British were coming.
And why did you need to warn the Patriots about the British?
Many of us colonists were being treated by the British badly. We wanted to fight for our freedom. We heard that the British were going to steal 2 important leaders and steal weapons and ammunition, so we could not fight.
That midnight ride was monumental and very courageous of you. Was your midnight ride successful?
Yes, we were successful hiding weapons and making sure our leaders did not get caught. We were ready to fight. The morning after, when I was after my ride, the first few shots of the American Revolution War were fired, and we eventually have won our independence.
Very good. Way to stand up and fight for our freedom. Thank you so much for your bravery and service. Now we welcome Mr. Francis Scott Key to our show. When were you born?
I was born August 1st in Maryland, Frederick County, 1776.
Very good. Did you enjoy school?
I enjoyed school, but I got in trouble often. I like to play tricks on my teachers and let cows out in the schoolyard. I went to college when I was just 10 years old.
Oh boy, you were quite mischievous, yet brilliant as you attended college at 10. What was exciting in your life?
One of the most exciting things in my life was when I saved my good friend, Dr. William Beans, from the British ships and got to saw them bomb Fort McHenry.
Very good. That's exciting. You're a very loyal friend. What are you most known for?
I'm most known for writing the poem, The Star-Spangled Banner, which later became America's national anthem.
Yes, indeed. It's a beautiful poem and anthem. What is a fun fact about you?
A fun fact about me there was a bridge named after me called the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, near the bombing of Fort McHenry, and where I wrote the Star-Spangled Banner.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Thank you for your contribution to our great country. Thank you for being here today. We now welcome President Teddy Roosevelt to our show. Can you tell us where and when you were born?
I was born on October 27th, 1858 in New York, New York.
And how did you become a war hero?
I created the first volunteer cavalry regiment called the Rough Riders in the Great Spanish-American War. In the Battle of Sunny Heights, I led my men to victory and raised the great American flag over San Juan Heights. I was awarded a Medal of Honor that day for my bravery in battle.
That's right. That is quite an achievement of honor. What is your biggest accomplishment during your time as president?
I helped Panama gain independence from Colombia to make way for the Panama Canal.
Excellent. What a great way to ship goods quickly and cheaply between our coast. How many children did you have?
I had one child, my first wife, Alice Lee. My daughter's name was Alice. I had 5 children, my next wife, Ethel Kroll. Theodore Roosevelt III, Ethel, Kermit, Quentin, and Archibald.
That's wonderful. And how did you win the Nobel Peace Prize?
I won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906 for my work in ending the Russo-Japanese War.
That's right. Thank you so much for your leadership and service as president. Good afternoon, Squanto. Thank you for joining us today. When and where were you born?
I was born in 1585 in Massachusetts.
And how did you learn to speak English?
I learned to speak English by the monks who adopted me in Spain.
Wow. Was that helpful when your tribe needed to communicate with the pilgrims in your land?
Yes, it was helpful for us to talk to them and make a peace treaty between us.
That's wonderful. How did you help the pilgrims survive their first hard winter in Massachusetts?
I helped them by teaching them how to hunt, plant crops, and fish.
I'm sure they were so grateful for your help. Did you have a celebration with the pilgrims after the first harvest?
Yes, we had a celebration. We call this Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is when we celebrated their feast and a harvest.
Very good. Thank you, Squanto, for all of your assistance, and we love to celebrate Thanksgiving still today. Thank you. We now welcome to our show Miss Betsy Ross. What is your real name, and when were you born?
My real name is Elizabeth Griscom. I was born on January 1st, 1752, during a terrible cold that froze animals in Gloucester, New Jersey.
Wow, that is quite a winter. What was your job when you grew up?
When I finished school, I worked for William Webster in an upholstery shop in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Excellent. How did your life change after you married your first husband, John Ross?
I was a Quaker, but when I married John, I had to leave my church and become a non-Quaker. We went to John's church instead.
That must have been difficult. How did you become the woman who is credited for making the first American flag?
George Washington, along with my uncle, Colonel George Ross, and Robert Morris, brought a rough draft of a flag to my upholstery shop in June 1776. The flag was to be a sign of independence for the Revolutionary War. The flag had 6-point stars, but I changed them to 5 points. Okay. The flag had 13 white stars on a blue background with 13 red and white stripes to represent the 13 colonies.
Wow, very impressive. What other accomplishments did you have in your life?
I made flags for the government and the Pennsylvania Navy. I also made the Cambridge flag. Also known as the Continental Colors of the Continental Army. I made the flags of my house, which you can see at 239 Arch Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, near the Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell.
That is so awesome that you can visit your home today. Thank you so much for your service, Mrs. Ross. Welcome to our show, Mr. Orville Wright. When and where were you born?
I was born in Ohio, 1871.
And what was your family like?
I had one younger sister and 3 older brothers. My dad was a bishop and my mom was a homemaker who liked to fix things. I never married or had kids.
Sure. And what were you like as a kid?
Even though I was very small, I did not like school. I had a mechanical mindset and liked to figure out how things worked.
I see. You must have been very gifted. What did you do for a living?
First, me and my brother Wilbur bought a printing press and started the newspaper called West Side News. Later on, we opened a bicycle shop where we did repairs, sold parts, and even made some of our own bike models.
That is quite impressive. What eventually made you famous worldwide?
Using what we knew about bicycles led me and my brother to build and fly the first airplane. We received many awards and a contract from the U.S. Army to produce planes and train pilots.
Wow, so amazing. We're so grateful for your perseverance and invention. Thank you so much. We now welcome Miss Clara Barton to our show. When were you born?
I was born on Christmas Day, 1821, North Oxford, Massachusetts.
Wow, on Christmas Day, what a precious Christmas gift. What was your childhood like?
When I was 10 years old, my life changed forever. My brother had an accident, and I had to care for him every day for 2 years. This gave me a new sense of purpose and taught me the power of compassion and perseverance.
I'm sure it did. I'm so sorry. You were so loving to care for him daily. What other experiences did you have where you had to step in to help others?
April 19, 1861, during the Civil War, I was living in Washington, D.C., when wounded soldiers arrived from the riots of Baltimore. I rushed to the railroad station where the victims were being transported and provided vital assistance to the soldiers. My heart stirred with a new purpose to serve the soldiers fighting in the Civil War.
Wow, how selfless. I can certainly see your compassion for others. Why were you named Angel of the Battlefield?
I had many experiences on the battlefield that were filled with both courage and heartbreak. This name reflected my remarkable acts towards heroism and kindness as I rushed to aid the overwhelmed surgeons and to care for the severely wounded soldiers on numerous battlefields.
That name suited you perfectly. You were so courageous. When were you appointed President of the American Red Cross?
It was under my leadership from 1881 to 1904. During that time, it played a crucial role in aiding refugees and prisoners in the Spanish-American War. It also supported and provided assistance during the floods along the Ohio River. It served Texas when they faced severe famine, and it served Illinois when tornadoes ravaged through it. My commitment to serving others knew no limits, but inspired all who crossed my path.
Wow, thank you so much for your compassion, your commitment, and dedication to our soldiers and country. Thank you for visiting with us today. Welcome to our show, Mr. Jackie Robinson. When and where were you born?
I was born on January 31st, 1919 in Cairo, Georgia. I grew up in a time when blacks were not treated equally. I also lived through a Great Depression.
I'm so sorry to hear that. What a sad time in our nation for sure. Did you get married and have a family?
Yes, I married my wife Rachel when I was 27. We met at UCLA, and I had 3 children, Jackie Jr., Sharon, and David.
That's wonderful. What was your greatest achievement?
I was the first African-American Major League Baseball player. I was a 6-time All-Star, World Series champ. I was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I also fought for civil rights.
Wow, what amazing accomplishments. What was your role in the civil rights movement?
I always stood up for myself against racism, never gave up, stayed positive. I made a way for other African Americans in sports and in life. I marched with Martin Luther King Jr. for equal rights.
Way to take a stand for equality and remain positive during such a difficult time. What was your baseball number?
My number was 42. I played for Brooklyn Dodgers for 10 years. My number was retired from baseball in 1972 in honor of me and my accomplishments.
That is awesome. Thank you for being here and for your commitment to the civil rights movement. We now welcome to our show Queen Elizabeth II. When and where were you born?
I was born on April 21st, 1926 in London. My full name is Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor. I was the first child of the Duke and Duchess of York, who later became King George VI and Queen Elizabeth.
And what made your coronation special?
When my dear father passed away in 1952, I was only 25 years old. It was a great responsibility, but I was determined to serve my people. My coronation was the first ever to be televised, and millions of people around the world watched me take my oath to serve my country.
Wow, that is a great responsibility at such a young age. Did you own any unusual pets?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Over the years, I received some rather exotic animals as gifts from world leaders, including an elephant, a jaguar, 2 giant turtles, and a pair of sloths. Naturally, I couldn't keep them at the palace, so they were sent to live at the London Zoo.
Whoa, that is quite exotic and a little frightening. Is it true that you never had a driver's license?
Quite right. Though I loved driving, especially my Land Rovers, I never needed a license because technically all licenses in the UK are issued in my name, and one cannot very well issue a license to oneself, can one?
Well, yes, I guess you're right. What was it like to be the longest reigning queen?
When I ascended the throne in 1952, I never imagined I would serve for over 70 years. I witnessed extraordinary changes in the world, from space exploration to the digital age. I met 15 British prime ministers, 13 U.S. presidents, and visited over 100 countries, making me the most widely traveled monarch. My reign was long, but every day I remained committed to my pledge, to dedicate my life, whether short or long, to the service of my country and the Commonwealth.
Wow, what determination, dedication, and commitment that you upheld for many years in service to your country. Thank you for being with us today. Welcome, Miss Anne Frank. When and where were you born?
I was born on June 12, 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany.
Would you say you had a normal childhood?
No, I was mostly in hiding during the Holocaust.
That is so scary and incredibly sad. I'm sorry to hear that. Why did you and your family have to hide?
My family and I were Jews, and Jews were getting captured and killed by Hitler.
What a tragic time in our history. How old were you when you died?
I died at a very young age at 15 at a concentration camp.
We can't imagine what you and so many Jews endured. How did people all over the world learn about your story?
While I was in hiding, I was writing inside my diary what was happening in my life. My diary was published into a book and a movie.
Wow, we are so grateful for you and your story. Although your life was short-lived, it is forever remembered. Thank you for sharing and being with us today.
Hello there. Welcome to our show. Who are you and why are you famous?
My name is Phoebe Ann Moses, but you can call me Annie Oakley. I'm a world famous sharpshooter.
Wow. Annie, how did you get started shooting?
My father died and I had to hunt and put food on the table. My first job was hunting birds for a store. I could shoot birds right in the head.
Really? That's amazing. How did you get famous?
I was a performer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. I could shoot backwards, upside down, and even on a horse. I can even split a playing card in half and shoot an apple off a dog's head. I never missed.
I believe it. What was it like being a woman in a man's sport?
When a man hits a target, they call him marksman. When I hit a target, they call it trick. Never did like it that much. I never cheated. I went to be judged on my shooting, so I wore no makeup and modest clothing.
That's great. Did you help others with your skill?
Of course. I gave shooting lessons to women for free. I want women to know how to hold a gun as natural as holding a baby. I gave on charity shows for a Red Cross. I even melt down my gum melts to give to the hospital.
Well, Annie, that was so generous. Thank you so much for coming to our show today.
It was nice meeting you folks. Have a good rest of your day.
Welcome, Thomas Edison. When were you born?
I was born February 11th, 1847 in Milan, Ohio. I was born February 11th, 1847 in Milan, Ohio. My parents were Nancy and Samuel Edison. I was the youngest of 7 siblings. When I was young, most people called me Al.
So Al, out of all of your inventions, which is your favorite and why?
I had over 1,093 inventions, and that was a record until the year 2000. Most people know me for inventing the light bulb, but my favorite is the phonograph, which can record and play back music.
Yes, very interesting. Now, you were quoted many times in your life. What is your favorite quote?
The world owes nothing to any man, but every man owes something to the world. This means that we should all contribute to society.
That's right, absolutely. Can you tell me an interesting fact about you that many don't know?
I am mostly deaf. I can only hear out of one ear. This most likely happened when I got scarlet fever as a child. Although I thought when it was that someone at the train lifted me up from my ear into the cart, I don't really mind because it helped me focus on my inventions and not get distracted.
I see. And how did you get into inventing?
When I was 15, I saved a train worker's son from being hit in the tracks. He was so thankful he trained me in telegraphy. Telegraphy is communicating with taps and sounds in a hood to get a message over a long distance. This sparked an interest for me, and I started trying to improve this communication system. The constant work on this device later assisted with the invention of the telephone with Alexander Bell.
That's right, and we are very grateful. Thank you so much, Thomas Edison. And welcome Amelia Earhart. Amelia, how did you first become interested in flying?
When I was 12 years old, I saw my first airplane at the Iowa State Fair. On Christmas Day in 1920, I went to an air show with my father. I was 23 years old.
Did you ride in a plane at that air show with your dad?
No, but 3 days later, I took my first plane ride and loved being in the air. In 1921, I bought my first plane and pilot's license 2 years later.
Very exciting. Can you tell us about the first flight that made you famous?
I was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic by myself in 1932, but I wasn't satisfied. I wanted to set another record to fly around the world.
Wow, what an ambitious goal. When did you start that flight?
I left from Miami, Florida on June 1st, 1937 for my 29,000-mile flight around the world. My airplane was a Lockheed Electra 10E, and Fred Noonan was my navigator. Whenever I fly, I like to eat oranges and drink hot cocoa.
Very yummy snacks. Were you able to make it around the world?
On July 2nd, we left from New Guinea and were looking for Howland Island, but we couldn't find it. The plane ran out of gas and then we crashed into the ocean. People are still looking for my plane today.
Oh, a tragic ending. Thank you so much, Amelia Earhart. And welcome Abigail Adams to our show. When and where were you born?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1744.
And did you go to school?
No, I didn't go to a regular school. I spent a lot of time in my grandfather and uncle's library reading many books.
It's wonderful. And what kind of mother were you?
I was a loving and caring mother. I had 6 children. I taught my kids how to work hard and think for themselves.
Very good. Why do people call you one of the first women to speak up for women's rights?
In one of my letters, I told John to remember the ladies while I was helping him write the new laws. I believed women should have more rights and be treated equally to men.
Naturally. Why are you important in American history?
I spoke up for equal rights and am remembered as a strong, smart, and wonderful woman.
That's right, sure are. Thank you so much for joining us, Abigail. And welcome, President George Washington. Where were you born?
I was born in Westmoreland County, Virginia, to Augustine and Marybelle Washington on February 22nd, 1732.
And what are some things that you enjoy doing in your personal time?
I enjoyed horseback riding, hunting, and even dancing. Oh, and a favorite food of mine are hoe cakes, which is a cornmeal pancake that I cover with butter and honey on it.
Sounds delicious. During your time in war, were there any battles that stand out to you the most?
There were quite a few, but one being the Battle of Monongahela. We were outnumbered and lost most of our senior officers. During this battle, there was 2 horses shot out from under me, and as you can see, 4 bullet holes shot through my coat.
That must have been terrifying. Were you happy to be the first president of the United States?
No, although I was voted unanimously twice, I did not feel like I had the skills for the job.
Well, with all that you have seen and done in your life, is there anything that you are afraid of?
Yes, of course. While I am not afraid of dying, I am fearful of being buried alive. Because of this, my request is not to be buried at least 3 days after my death.
Okay, can't say I blame you. Well, thank you so much for coming to our show today, President Washington. We're pleased to welcome President Abraham Lincoln. When were you born?
I was born on February 12th near Hogginville, Kentucky, but had to move to Indiana when I was 7.
What did you like going to school?
I have very little formal education, but I taught myself by reading everything I could get my hands on.
Excellent. When were you president?
I became the 16th president in 1860 and led the nation through the American Civil War.
When was the Civil War?
The Civil War started on April 12th, 1861, and ended on April 12th, 1865, and I served as Commander-in-Chief.
You're very brave. When did you die?
I died on April 15th, 1865 by John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated me at Thor Theater in Washington, D.C.
Such a tragic loss. Thank you so much for coming, President Lincoln. And welcome, Kobe Bryant. When were you born?
I was born on August 23rd, 1978 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Not too far. Did you go to college?
I did not go to college. I went to Lower Merion High School in Philadelphia. After high school, I was drafted straight into the NBA to Los Angeles Lakers.
And what year did you start playing in the NBA?
I was drafted in 1996 and played for 20 seasons. Of those 20 seasons, I was the NBA scoring champion for 2 seasons.
Amazing. How many NBA championships did you win?
I won 5 NBA championships. I won all of my championships with the Los Angeles Lakers.
It's an amazing feat. Did you ever play in the NBA All-Star game?
I played in 15 NBA All-Star games. In 1998, I played against my favorite player, Michael Jordan. I was voted NBA All-Star MVP 4 times.
Mostly impressive. Thank you so much for coming, Kobe Bryant. Hello there. What is your full name, and what do you prefer to be called?
My full name is George Herman Ruth. I prefer to be called by my nickname, Babe.
Well, Babe, what is your birthday, and where were you born?
I was born on February 6, 1895 in Baltimore, Maryland. The area I grew up in was known as Pigtown because it was a major center of meatpacking and processing pigs.
I believe it's still called that today. What did your dad, Big George, do when you were 7 years old?
My dad, Big George, sent me to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys to keep me out of trouble. I was hanging out with other kids causing a lot of trouble, like stealing and breaking windows.
Uh-oh, that's bad news. What record of yours made history and lasted 42 years?
I pitched 29.66 scoreless innings in the World Series.
Must have been amazing. Who did the people consider baseball's king in the 1920s and 30s?
They considered me the great Bambino because I hit 714 home runs, more than anyone else.
It's very impressive. And what was the year you passed away, and what caused it?
I passed away August 16th, 1948, from throat cancer. I was one of the first patients to receive radiation and chemotherapy, but sadly the treatments didn't work.
It's very sad. Well, thank you for coming to our show, Babe Ruth. And welcome, Jacoby Jones. When were you born?
I was born July 11th, 1984 in New Orleans, the same day that Geraldine Ferrero was announced as running mate for vice president, making her the first female nominee in a major U.S. political party.
So where did you attend college?
I attended Lane College and played for the Lane College Dragons.
And what was your draft?
I was drafted 3rd round, 73rd overall for the Houston Texans. I was then cut and joined the Baltimore Ravens. I also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers and San Diego Chargers.
What was your first career touchdown?
I returned a punt for a 70-yard score against the Miami Dolphins.
So what's your biggest accomplishment?
My 108-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in Super Bowl 47 for the Ravens. I also caught a 56-yard touchdown pass. We won the Super Bowl against the 49ers 34-31.
Such an exciting game. How many touchdowns did you score during your time in the NFL?
In 9 seasons, I scored 23 touchdowns.
And how many yards did you gain during your time in the NFL?
I gained 2,671 yards from quarterbacks like Joe Flacco, Matt Leonard, and Mike Vick.
How many passes did you catch during your time?
I caught 203 passes in my career.
Amazing. What did you do after you stopped playing for the NFL?
I coached at different colleges. I coached at Lane College, Calvert Hall College, Alabama State, and Morgan State.
Amazing to pass on your wonderful skills. Thank you for joining us today, Jacoby Jones. And welcome John Wesley Powell. John, why were you homeschooled?
My dad was an abolitionist, so not many people liked me. I was beaten and stoned at age 7. My homeschool teacher was a naturalist. I studied by observing and experiencing nature, and I love the outdoors.
Me too. How did you lose your right arm?
I fought for the Union in the Civil War, but on the first day of the battle in Shiloh, I raised my arm and it got shot with a mini ball and it got infected. The doctors cut it off, but I still fought in the Civil War.
You were very brave to continue fighting. What are you famous for?
In 1869, I led an expedition down the Grand Canyon, making maps and surveying the Colorado River. I had a team of 9 men. However, 2 died because Indians thought they were murderers. The expedition ended on the 99th day. We traveled 1,000 miles and went through 500 rapids.
Wonderful. How did you get all of those supplies for the Grand Canyon?
I made a deal with the Illinois Museum of Natural History that if I find any artifacts, I will give them the artifacts for scientific supplies. I also funded 4 boats, and I was on the lead boat.
Well, that was so generous of you. Were you and your crew ever scared?
Yes, there are a few deadly-looking waterfalls. We crashed a boat, lost a third of food, and the men were swept away, but they did not drown. The days were very hot, and at night the temperature was cold with thunderstorms. Once while I was measuring a part of a canyon, I almost fell off a cliff till one of my crew members, George Bradley, took off his pants to save me.
Sounds like quite an adventure. Thank you so much, John Wesley Powell.
Welcome to our show, Pocahontas. When were you born?
I was born around 1596 and named Amanute. My nickname given by my father is Pocahontas, which means playful one.
I see. Did you ever get married?
Yes, I got married to Kokoum in 1610. After I was kidnapped, I got married to John Rolfe in 1614.
And what was your job?
My job was to work between my tribe's people and English settlers. I gave food and supplies to people in Jamestown.
So very helpful. What was an important part of your life?
After I was kidnapped, I was taught English and about God. I was baptized and my name was changed to Rebecca.
That's wonderful news. When did you die?
I died on a ship returning to England coming after living. No, yeah, I was returning on a ship from England after living in England on a ship returning to Virginia, and
where were you buried?
I was buried in Gravesend, United Kingdom at St. John's Church.
Very good. We thank you so much for your help and contribution to the settlers in Jamestown. Thank you for joining us today. Now we welcome Miss Mary Pickersgill to our show. Miss Pickersgill, when and where were you born?
I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on February 12, 1776. This is the same year our nation declared independence from Great Britain.
Yes, that's right. Miss Pickersgill, what are you best known for?
I am best known for sewing the flag that was at Fort McHenry when the British attacked 1814. My flag was made out of wool and was 40 feet wide by 30 feet long. Today you can see my flag at the National Museum of American History.
Oh, that's so exciting that you can go see it today. Thank you for sharing that. Why was that flag important?
It was a symbol of freedom. Francis Scott Key saw it after 24 hours of fighting and inspired him to write the poem, Defense of Fort McHenry. This is now our national anthem.
Yes, we are thankful for the flag and the freedom that it represents. Miss Pickersgill, how did you learn how to sew?
I learned how to sew by my mother, Rebecca Flowers Jenkins. She sewn flags during the Revolutionary War. After I grew up and got married, my husband passed away after 10 years. I moved from Philadelphia to Pennsylvania to Baltimore, where I opened my very own flag shop for my own home.
I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. I understand moving closer to family. It's quite impressive starting a flag business from your home. How much money did it take to make the Fort McHenry flag?
It took $405. Today would be approximately $7,000.
Whoa, talk about inflation. Thank you, Ms. Pickersgill, for your wonderful contribution to our country. Welcome to our show now, Mr. William Wilberforce. Where and when were you born?
I was born on August 24th, 1759 in Hull, England, a busy little city known for making lots of ships.
And why are you famous?
As a member of British Parliament, I led the Slave Trade Act of 1807, which made it illegal to transport slaves on British ships.
I see. Tell me about your beliefs.
I became a Christian at the age of 26, 1785, which changed everything for me. I started reading the Bible and thinking about how God wants us to treat each other with love and kindness, which made me decide to stop the slave trade in the British Empire.
That's remarkable. What a transformation to new life as well. Who were your inspirations?
I looked up to the famous preacher George Whitefield and John Newton, who wrote the song Amazing Grace.
That's awesome. What a classic hymn, one of my favorites. What brings you joy?
My wife, Barbara, and our 6 kids, 3 boys and 3 girls, make us very happy.
That sounds like an abundant life you lived. Thank you for sharing and being with us on our show today. We now welcome Ms. Helen Keller to our show. When and where were you born, and what were your parents' names?
I was born June 27, 1880 in Tuscumbia, Alabama. My parents' names were Captain Arthur Keller and Kate Keller.
And what was your greatest challenge?
Before I became 2 years old, I became very ill and lost my sight, hearing, and speech. Despite this challenge, I persevered and learned how to communicate, read, and write.
Wow, what incredible challenges to face at a very young age. What was your favorite subject in school?
I did very well in geography, botany, and zoology. Math was my least favorite. Out of all the subjects, poetry was my favorite. It became my passion. When I grew up, I became a writer.
That's so amazing and inspirational as well. Who helped you the most throughout your life?
Annie Sullivan was there for me childhood to adulthood as a teacher and a friend. She was the first person who helped me understand words by writing them in my hand with her finger.
She sounds like a lovely and loyal friend. Did you ever meet anyone famous?
Yes, I did. I was an ambassador working for the American Foundation for the Blind. I traveled the world and met presidents, kings, and queens.
What an incredible opportunity. Your perseverance in the midst of difficult circumstances is an inspiration to us all. Thank you for sharing. Welcome to our show, Mr. Meriwether Lewis. Can you tell us, Mr. Lewis, when you were born?
I was born on August 18th, 1774 in Virginia.
And what was your favorite thing to do as a child?
My favorite thing to do as a child was to play outside and explore the land. This made me want to join the army so I could be outdoors.
That sounds wonderful. What was the most exciting thing that happened to you?
The most exciting thing that happened to me was President Thomas Jefferson hired me to go explore the land of the Louisiana Territory. I got to ask my friend William to go along with me.
That's so fun to ask a friend along for the adventure. What were you exploring the land to find?
We were searching for something called the Northwest Waterway, and to research plants, animals, and to make friendly connections with the Native Americans.
That's so exciting. What was the best part of your exploration?
The best part of our exploration when we made friends with the Indians, especially Sacagawea. She helped us teaching us about the plants, animal, and land. Oh, and the Northwest Waterway doesn't exist.
Wow, that is an interesting fact. Sounds like a fun and adventurous journey with friends that you had. Thank you for sharing your exploration with us, Mr. Lewis. Welcome, Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. How did you feel about bus segregation?
Other civil rights leaders and I felt we could make a difference.
Absolutely. How did you make a difference?
We organized a protest and encouraged all black people to stop riding the city buses. All black people stopped riding the city buses for 381 days.
Wow, that's a long time. Did the protest work?
Yes, the Supreme Court ruled that buses in Montgomery would no longer be segregated.
That's right. That's amazing. What a difference you made in that protest. Where and why did you have your I Have a Dream speech?
I spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial so I could show people there could be fairness all without violence.
So true, and you modeled this very well. Why did you earn the Nobel Peace Prize?
For equality and led peaceful protests.
You sure did. What a positive impact you made in bringing people together as you peacefully led protests and shared that we are equally created by God. Thank you for your bravery and leadership. We now welcome President Franklin D. Roosevelt. What was special about your presidency?
I was president longer than anyone else, and I helped the country through World War II.
And how did you connect with the American people?
I sat them by the fire and spoke on the radio like a friend, like with fireside chats.
Wow, I love that. What was the greatest challenge of your life?
The greatest challenge was getting polio when I was 39 years old and losing the ability to walk.
How devastating and difficult that must have been for you. How did you handle that?
I was determined to serve my country no matter what.
It didn't stop me. I even had a car made that I could drive with my hands.
Wow, what strength and perseverance. What was your favorite pastime when you were younger?
I love going sailing and fishing on my sailboat at New Moon.
That sounds so lovely. Thank you for your service to our country. Welcome Dr. William Beans to our show. Dr. William Beans, when or where were you born?
I was born on January 24, 1749 in Crewe, Maryland. My parents were wealthy landowners.
And what was your job?
I was a local doctor. I helped soldiers during the Revolutionary War.
That is great. Were you involved in any other wars?
Yes, I was involved in the War of 1812 between England and U.S. The British used my house as a base of operation during the burning of Washington, D.C.
I see. Were you on England's side during the war?
No, I was acting as a spy. In fact, I got arrested by the British because I helped capture the British soldiers because they stole by nearby farms.
Wow, that's very interesting. How did you get out of British captivity?
Francis Scott Key came to negotiate my release. In fact, I was the reason the Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key.
That's wonderful that he came to your rescue. What a loyal friend. Thank you for your courage as a spy and for your service. We welcome Sacagawea to our show. When and where were you born?
I was born around 1789 in the area that is now part of Lemhi County, Idaho.
And what was your role in the Lewis and Clark expedition?
I translated to the Shoshone chief to get horses and got roots for the men. I also was helpful in finding edible plants and fruits and was a guide for certain landmarks.
That's wonderful. What were some challenges that you faced?
I faced being captured around the age of 12, forced into marriage when I was sold to a French-Canadian fur trader, and caring for a baby during the expedition.
Wow, that is quite an undertaking and very challenging. What was the significance of you during the expedition?
I let people know that the expedition was not a war party because war parties don't travel with women and babies.
That's great. And how did you impact the world?
I was a symbol of peace and strength to Native American women and was a role model for women. I was honored to have a golden dollar coin minted with my portrait.
Thank you for your bravery and guidance during the expedition. You made quite an impact. Thank you for joining us today.
Mission Control, this is Sally Ride. I've just landed at Hartford Christian School. Over.
What an exciting landing. We welcome Sally Ride. Thank you for joining us today. Did you like school when you were growing up, Sally?
Yes, I loved school, especially science and math. I also love to read.
That's awesome. Did you have any special talents?
Yes, I'm a very talented tennis player. When I was 11 years old, my parents bought me a tennis racket, and that's when I began to play. I got a scholarship to Westlake High School. I dropped out of college to become a professional tennis player. Soon after, I decided I wasn't going to be the best, so I went back to college. I went to Stanford and became a physicist.
Wow, that is so impressive. I love tennis too. How did you end up at NASA?
On 1977, NASA had an advertisement in the school newspaper looking for people to become astronauts. Even women could apply. Out of 8,000 people, I was one of the 35 chosen. Being a physicist and tennis player helped me become chosen. Outer space is very hard on your body.
Wow, I can only imagine. So when did you go to outer space?
On June 18, 1983, I became the first American woman in space. I was a mission specialist and flight engineer for the Challenger STS-7 mission. My mission lasted for 6 days. I got to see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets in a day. It was amazing.
Wow, how glorious to see God's handiwork in space. Wait, didn't the Challenger explode?
Yes, but from my third mission to space, the Challenger exploded with a group of my friends on it. I was so sad. I never went back to space. But I stayed with NASA to try to help figure out what went wrong so it would never happen again. What I'm most proud of creating is Sally Ride Science, which encourages kids, especially girls, to learn more about science and math.
That's awesome. I'm so sorry for your incredible loss. Thank you for your leadership in encouraging our youth to love science and math. Thank you, Sally Ride. Welcome to our show, Mr. Neil Armstrong. How old were you when you went to the moon, and how long did it take you to get there?
I was 38 years old when I walked on the moon in 1969. It took about 3 days to get there. We traveled over 200,000 miles in space.
Wow, that's incredible. What an experience. Did you bring anything back from the moon?
Yes, I brought dust and rocks so scientists could study what the moon is made out of.
That's exciting. How did you get to the moon?
I traveled on a spacecraft called Apollo 11. It had a rocket that launched us into space and a lander that was called the Eagle that helped us land on the moon.
I see. What did you say when you stepped on the moon?
I said that's one small step for a man, but one giant leap for mankind.
Yes, a quote we will never forget. What did you do after coming back to Earth?
I helped NASA and I was a teacher, and I wanted to teach others about science and space and flying.
That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing your out-of-the-world experience with us and for teaching others about space. Well, that concludes our Yesterday Show. Let's give these wonderful guests today one more round of applause, please. Thank you. These students have worked so hard on their characters, and we're so proud of their efforts. Thank you for your amazing support and attending the Yesterday Show. We have had so much fun just learning and walking through history together. We're going to ask in just a moment if the students can come back up for a class picture, and then everyone is welcome to take individual pictures, and then you're welcome to get your students. Thank you so much.